This is my review, my official review of the Ronin Katanas, Ronin's precision truck. Back in the day, they made a cast truck that was pretty popular. You can still find them around, but pretty expensive, usually getting them on the cast market. But as far as cast trucks go, from the little bit that I've tried them, they are definitely the precision cast truck. And Ronin has a really cool way of dealing with some of the trickier elements of truck design and truck performance. I've become a big fan of these trucks, and if you guys remember, it got a lot of views. Actually, you guys are really interested in seeing it. I borrowed these trucks a couple years ago from a good friend of mine, Aaron Plavan. Not these exact trucks, they were a different model, different width. And in that video, you might recall, I didn't like them. I really struggled on them. I felt like I didn't quite have the time or the bushings I needed to get them tuned up and working properly for me. I just felt like the slide was a little weird. I felt like the cornering was a little weird. I just couldn't wrap my head around those trucks. And now, thanks to my friend Timothy Trowbridge, who has lent me these trucks a number of times, I've gotten to the point where I'm on a setup I'm happy with. I'm on a bushing setup that works well for me. And I've become a really big fan of Ronin products. So let's talk about them. These trucks are 124 to 134, making them a little bit wider than most modern race trucks. They also sell 114 to 124, is the narrowest that they've sold in recent years. Personally, I would like to see a narrower option come out. 104 to 114 would be absolutely choice to keep up with other modern narrow widths, but who's to say if these trucks really need them? In the front truck, I've got double 85A APS bushings, and in the back truck, kind of depending on how I'm feeling, I do 97.5A and 95A, all APS. As you guys might know from my recent truck reviews, I partnered with Riptide to, in exchange for them sending me a big variety of their products, I agreed to show you how to best set up your trucks with their products. I think that the APS does a really good job of mimicking the feeling of Ronin bushings. Not a ton of rebound, but just a really smooth, clean, lean. It's hard to say which is better, the Riptide products or the Ronin products. They are definitely very similar. If you're just getting these trucks, maybe 85, 85, 95, 95, and then tune your setup from there, either adding harder in the back if you need, or softer in the front if you need. That's a pretty balanced setup as is. When I was skating these with the Ronin products, I was using the mango bushings in the front. These are 85A. And in the back, I used a combination of the iced tea, which is the brown 95A, and then the fruit punch, which is 92A. Just double check my work here. I've got the Ronin's page open where they sell bushings. It is nice to see that it seems like their products are in stock on the website. That's in recent years been one of the bigger issues with Ronin stuff, is coming across their replacement parts has not been too easy. But it looks like, as I'm checking out everything, all the stuff on their website is available, which is good to see, because I know that there is definitely some sort of aftermarket demand on various buying, selling, and trading groups of people wanting to get their hands on the tune-up kits or additional bushings for Ronins. And I'm hoping that, in the near future, they put some more stock up on their website. It seems like they're continuing to develop new products despite despite the owner, Fred, passing away a couple years ago. I don't know the full involvement of different people on Ronin's team coming together to make trucks still be developed, but first and foremost, if you're ever trying to catch a glimpse of what Ronin is working on, or product development, or just, things like that, Max Caps seems to be most heavily involved with the company these days. But yeah, so these trucks, 45 degrees, 25 degrees. That's how I skated them when I first tried them, and didn't really work for me. Personally, I've never enjoyed or performed well on a 45 degree front truck. On free ride setups, I like to go a little bit lower with a 40, did I say 43? 45 degree front chuck. On free ride setups with more traditional cast trucks, I'm usually going for that 43, 44, 42 front truck, maybe a slight D-wedge in the back. I don't mind it on a more symmetrical setup, but on a heavy split, 45-25 just doesn't work for me. And so I've wedged the front truck up 5 degrees using Pat's risers, and I've wedged the rear truck down 5 degrees also using Pat's risers. So we've got 50-20. This has been working great for me. The deck, you'll notice, is the newer Earthwing Hoopty R. This is the 8-ply with Formica. Earthwing has sent me a couple of their decks to review and then eventually give away. So hoping to stoke out some groms in my local community with these products once they're done being reviewed. But yeah, Ronins feel so solid. They feel heavy, and not in a bad way. They just feel like really connected to the ground, connected to the pavement in a way that I haven't gotten from a ton of other trucks. It's a really unique feeling, and there's a couple reasons why this occurs. But the biggest, first and foremost reason is a really unique thing in the geometry I want to show off, is their queen pin. Now this is what made Ronin special from the get-go. This is their unique technology. There's this little pin underneath the hanger that has a little ball pivot at the end that goes into a special type of pivot cup underneath the hanger. And what that does is it restricts the truck from having lateral slop. And I'll get these trucks apart so I can start to describe it. Now it's a little bit more complex than that, which is interesting because as you'll see, the queen pin has a bit of give. It has a bit of squish to it. That's because on the back end of the queen pin, there's a little rubber knob that is a really soft durometer that compresses in. So you can see here we've got the queen pin and then the little rubber knob on the back. You can see I'm squishing it with my finger. It's got a lot of give, it's got a lot of play. And the way that that sits in the truck is right back here, right behind the kingpin here, and gives the truck a decent amount of suspension there. And this is a really unique way to solve this issue because the sleeve for the queen pin is really tight. It doesn't have a lot of back and forth, side to side play, but it's got a lot of this compression in that one axis, which a lot of modern truck manufacturers are not worried about. They're not concerned about doing that. In fact, Scythe trucks, their trucks are completely restricted to one axis of rotation. And it makes the trucks very precise, very direct, really good for cornering and things like that. But the big complaint that a lot of people have riding those trucks is there's not a lot of vibration absorption. Whereas now that I've got bushings out of these trucks, you can see how the hangers can still rotate freely here. Even without bushings, they are pretty restricted in their motion, in the good way, in the ways that you want. But then there's just a little bit of compression that you get there that's actually really nice when you're riding, and it manifests with a really direct, solid feel on the ground. The board isn't getting jostled around by bumps very much. And it means that if you're running in not ideal conditions, rougher roads, cracks, things like that, these trucks absorb all of that really impressively. So that's a really big praise I have for these trucks. And it doesn't seem like that sacrifices performance. Having a little bit of give, a little bit of suspension in the trucks, doesn't seem like it takes away from their overall grip, their braking force, these things that we want from a truck in order for it to be either competitive or just, you know, good at cornering, grippy, reliable. This is I've spent some time journaling and designing my own trucks, and maybe I'll go through that process sometime. I'm nowhere near having an actual product to take to market, but that is one of the big things that I've always wanted to tackle with truck design is how do I make a precise truck that still has suspension in it, and in fact has tunable suspension. So you could have that fully locked down stiff truck if you're on really ideal pavements, but if you want a little bit more forgiveness, a little bit more give, how do I have that as an independent system in the truck that can be tuned? And Ronin doesn't take full advantage of this, but something I think they could do is offer different durometers of this little knob so that you can tune how much give or squish your trucks actually have. Now, do I think that that's going to be something a lot of people are looking for? No, not really. It's kind of just just something I'm imagining as maybe another leap forward for the company in terms of their, just product line development, things like that. Having a couple different hardnesses of these little knobs, I don't even know what to call them, on the end of the support pin or the queen pin, might give you that tunability that I was really trying to figure out how to do in my own, customization, my own design process. These trucks have proven over and over and over again, if you're looking at any top racing podium in the world, that they are extremely competitive. And they always have been. Even as other trucks have come along and improved, gotten better, Ronins continuously, with very few changes to their geometry, are able to clinch riders, podium positions, wins at huge races. And after skating them, it's no surprise why. These trucks are just so grippy. They lay down grip so well. And, other things that kind of go into this. The bushing seat, the distance between the two bushing seats is really, really thin. They don't have to have an insert bushing in there. There's nothing that's preventing them from keeping them close together. And that allows the bushings to compress really cleanly. The further apart you have the bushings from the pivot line or the pivot axis of the truck, ideally you want them right there together. That's what Valkyrie does in their truck design. They don't have them right together, they have them offset, but that overall gap between the planes, the two faces of them, right there together. As you start to spread these apart, it generates more friction in the truck. As the truck leans, the bushings are not compressing as cleanly. And when you have a really thin bushing seat like this, it allows for really nice, smooth, deep leaning, clean compression of the bushings. And that gives Ronins one of their characteristics, which is that they lean a lot. And this characteristic has prevented a lot of people from free riding on them. Typically, if you want a forgiving truck for free ride, you want it to have a strong center, you want it to run out of lean relatively quickly, you don't want it to lean infinitely, and those characteristics make it really easy to kind of balance in the center of the board when you're throwing out bigger stand-up slides. And when the board is going to hook up, there's no sudden tip of the board where the whole system just kind of grabs the road suddenly. It kind of makes that go away. And so that trade-off of, well, your trucks lean a lot, they lean really cleanly, they articulate across a huge range of motion, makes them a little bit less forgiving for free ride, but makes them perform better in other aspects. Cornering, they corner really, really well. Tuck leaning is, really nice on these trucks. They're just so smooth off center. And being able to, tune the bushings to your liking, you can achieve however much lean you really want to get. As you can tell from the tone of my voice, I have been extremely pleased and impressed with these Ronins. I think, just from my past testing, other anecdotes, they do take a different riding style, not too drastically different, but you do have to change up your technique a little bit if you're coming from other more traditional trucks. I don't know what it is exactly. I can't put a finger on what you need to change or why you need to change it. But there always, for me, is an adjustment period when I start to skate Ronin trucks. And this time is the first time I felt really successful in that adjustment period. And it wasn't very long. And part of that is just having the right bushings and familiar angles. 50-20 is a really familiar angle split to me. Something I wanted to talk about, and there's a lot of discourse online about this, is that Ronin trucks don't perform as well over 45 degrees. I don't think this is true, but I do understand where this is coming from. As you decrease the angle of the truck, it's putting more force, more weight down into the support pin, the queen pin, which is enabling the truck to not only have better bump resistance, better damping, but also better slop resistance. Just having more weight in there means all the mechanisms are seated a little bit better. And as you increase the angle, you take less and less pressure off of the queen pin. So you're not going to benefit from as much of that bump damping, that suspension feeling you get from the little bit of compression that queen pin allows you. So I can understand where people are coming from, where they're like, no, don't wedge up Ronins, they don't work as well. Maybe they don't feel the way you think they oughta, or they don't feel as familiar, but I've had absolutely no issues wedging these up to 50 degrees, and I would wedge them up higher. Now, are other people gonna do that? Are the top Ronin riders in the world doing this? I don't think so. I usually see Ronin riders with the 45-degree front truck, but it is what worked for me in this instance. I don't have a lot of downsides about these trucks other than their lack of free rideability. Of course, you can tune that with, you know, maybe a more restrictive bushing setup, fatter bushings. The bushing seat in the Ronins, while it is kind of wide open, does have slightly steeper walls, so you might not have as much room to play with various bushings as on a truck like a Rogue, where there is truly no bushing seat. And it's an interesting question to ask if Ronin needs a bushing seat at all, because it has the queen pin to help keep the truck aligned. But again, based on anecdotes, based on my own experimentation, it does seem like that bushing seat does a little bit. Now this is a third-hand account of Max Caps talking to my friend Tim, and then talking to me, that the profile of the bushings does actually change the way that the trucks feel. You'll see on Ronin bushings, and this is also common with riptide bushings as well, there's one rounded edge and one flat edge. And the rounded edge is going to give you a more fluid feeling, more cleaner articulation, but the flat edge is going to give you a precise engagement into the bushing and probably give you a little bit more lateral support to make up for where the queen pin fully can't. You'll have to experiment with that for yourselves. In the little bit that I experimented with it, I didn't notice a huge change in performance, but it is something to consider and mess around with other trucks, as you know, Riptide products have the rounded edge, especially on Canon and Magnum. Not so much the Magnum, you don't use those in anything besides board slide on a Paris truck, but it's something interesting to mess around with, experiment with. Like I already said, I would love to see Ronin come out with a narrower option. I think that would be like the last straw before I end up buying a set for myself, because I've been incredibly pleased with these trucks. They feel really versatile and forgiving and just so solid. They put down really consistent pressure into the pavement under braking, under cornering. And now that I've found a bushing setup that works for me and angles that work for me, I've really enjoyed my new time riding these. So if you have Ronins and I missed out on anything that you think I should have talked about, any specific quirks or characteristics of these trucks, drop it down in the comments. Let's share our information together. These trucks were lent to me by a good friend of mine, but also a patron, Timothy Trowbridge. So thank you to Tim. And then also in the past, skating different Ronins, Aaron Plavan lent me those for the first time and kind of started my journey of learning how to skate these trucks and set these trucks up properly. So thank you so much for enabling this. And on the whole, thank you so much to the patrons for kind of enabling my content in general. They're really the only way that this can make me any money at all. And it just helps offset the cost of some of the other larger things that I end up purchasing and reviewing. And the patrons, you know, on the other end get a lot of exclusive content and rewards. I'm actually filling up a goodie box for a patron tonight of just various 3D printed designs. You know, these are just some of the things that you can potentially expect to get in a box. It's a concave implant, a concave foot stop I have lovingly named the Bone, a more symmetrical center set foot stop. You can offset it as well, but I like this one a lot. And then the bash guard that I use on a number of different trucks, especially when I'm borrowing trucks from friends. I always throw this on the back just to protect their investment, in addition to protecting my investment on my more expensive trucks where, you know, they kind of stick out on the end. But yeah, just a number of things. Thanks for hearing me out in the little Patreon blurb. They really are helpful. We've garnered a good community over there, so check it out if you're interested in some of these like 3D printed rewards and a ton of hours of exclusive content. I just posted my 200th post on Patreon the other day, and the majority of those are videos not too dissimilar from this. The only difference is that it's more kind of casual talking, more first reactions, more hypothesizing on the, you know, great nature of gear product design and marketing in the longboard industry and things like that. It's just a little thought box over there. I can just project the things I'm wondering about. But yeah, huge upvote on these trucks for me. I'm glad I got them working for me. I'm glad I got them feeling good. And I would love to pick up a set for myself in the future. I've got a lot of really cool trucks right now, but these are just so cool and so unique in their feeling. And it's really cool to me, above all, that they found a recipe a long time ago, at least a long time in terms of, you know, the skate industry, specifically the downhill industry. They found a recipe that still works and is still competitive and is still extremely hard to beat on a racetrack or just in everyday skating. So thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate you very much, and I hope you have a great day.